Have you ever seen something that simply shouldn't exist? We found a building that wasn't on any map, a place that felt fundamentally wrong, and we were stupid enough to go inside. I'm the only one who remembers that day, because the world I escaped back to isn't the one I left behind. A story that makes you turn your head when you go to sleep? I'll tell you about this kind of poison, and I know what gets under your skin. It's not about the sudden jump scares. It's about the insidious, simmering fear. It's about taking the world you think you know and twisting it just a little bit, until it collapses. This is the story of Blackwood House. Forget what you think you know. This is what really happened. There's a specific kind of boredom that sets in after 40. It's not the restless boredom of youth, it's a heavier, more settled kind. The mortgage is paid, the kids are grown, the job is just the job. You've traded thrills for stability, and most days, that's a bargain you're happy with. But some nights, you sit in your armchair, the television flickering, and you feel the quiet screaming of a life that's become a flat line. That was me. Frank. And my friends Adam, Chris, and Jay, we were all in the same boat. We weren't reckless kids anymore. We were men with responsibilities, with bad knees and receding hairlines. Our answer to the flat line wasn't sports cars or affairs. It was urban exploration. URBX. A fancy term for trespassing in dead places. For us, it was a shot of adrenaline, a way to touch a world that had been forgotten. Peeling back the skin of the present to see the bones of the past. It was controlled chaos, a manageable fear. We'd seen forgotten factories, derelict theaters, ghost town hospitals. We had a system. We were safe. Or so we told ourselves. This particular Saturday started like any other. We were headed for the old St. Jude's Asylum on the outskirts of the city. Classic spot. A real beauty of decay. We'd been planning it for months. The GPS showed we were less than a mile away when Adam, our designated driver and resident hothead, slammed on the brakes. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What the hell is that? He pointed to the right. There was a break in the scraggly line of trees that bordered the highway, a path that wasn't a path. It was more like a suggestion, a faint parting of the undergrowth that you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. Probably just an access road for the power lines, man, Chris said from the back. He was our pragmatist, our voice of reason. Let's stick to the plan. No, Adam said, his voice hushed with a strange reverence. Look up. Through the trees. We followed his gaze. And my blood went cold. Looming over the thin canopy, so massive it seemed to defy physics, was a building. It wasn't just big, it was a monument to brutalism. A colossal block of dark, weathered concrete, and blackened glass, rising like a tombstone from the earth. It had the severe, utilitarian look of some Cold War-era government project nobody was ever meant to talk about. I've lived here my entire life, Jay whispered from beside me. Jay was our gear guy, always calm, always prepared. But his voice trembled. I've driven this highway 1,000 times. That building was never there. He was right. It was impossible. A structure that size doesn't just appear. You don't just miss it. It felt like looking at a mountain that had sprung up overnight. It was a glitch in the landscape, a fundamental error in reality. Adam, of course, was already out of the car. The pull of the unknown was his drug. Forget St. Jude's, he said, a manic grin spreading across his face. This is it. The motherlode. Adam, hold on, I said, stepping out into the humid air. This feels wrong. There are no records of this place. No chatter on the forums. It's a ghost. That's what makes it perfect, Frank. He shot back, already starting down the path. A chorus of protests rose from Chris and Jay, but it was useless. You don't let a friend walk into the dark alone. That's the rule. With a shared sense of profound dread, we grabbed our flashlights and followed him. The path ended abruptly at a set of towering, rust-stained steel doors. There was no graffiti. No beer cans. No signs of teenage vandalism. That was the first real warning bell. Every abandoned place gets tagged. It's a law of nature. This place was clean. Untouched. As if it had been actively repelling human contact. Above the door, etched into the concrete, were faint letters, the Blackwood Institute for Temporal Studies. Temporal Studies. Chris muttered. Like, time. Adam just grunted and put his shoulder to the door. It groaned open with the sound of shearing metal, revealing a chasm of absolute darkness. Last chance to turn back, I said, my voice sounding small in the sudden silence. Adam just flicked on his high-lumen flashlight and stepped inside. You guys coming, or what? We went in. The door swung shut behind us with a deafening, final boom, and the world we knew was gone. The air inside was stale and cold, thick with the smell of ozone and damp concrete. Our flashlight beams cut through the blackness, revealing a lobby that looked more like a bunker. The scale of it was obscene. The ceiling was 50 feet high. The floor was a vast expanse of polished black marble, covered in a fine layer of dust. Everything was hard lines and oppressive angles. It was built to make you feel small. Adam. Slow down. I yelled, my voice echoing unnaturally. He was already halfway across the lobby, a receding pinpoint of light. He didn't answer. He just turned down a long corridor to the right and vanished. Damn it, Adam. Chris cursed. He's gonna get himself killed. We hurried to catch up, our footsteps echoing like gunshots. When we reached the corner, we found ourselves staring down a hallway that stretched into infinity. Doors lined both sides, all of them identical, all of them slightly ajar. Adam. Jay shouted. His voice was swallowed by the oppressive silence. All right, we split up. Check the rooms, I said, trying to sound like I was in control. Jay, you take the left. Chris, with me on the right. We find him in 5 minutes, or we're out. I pushed open the first door on the right. It was an observation room, with a thick pane of yellowed glass looking into a small, padded cell. Nothing. The next room was the same. And the next. Each one was identical, sterile, and empty. A cold knot of fear tightened in my stomach. This place wasn't just abandoned. It felt clinical. Purposeful. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the silence. Get it off me. I ran back into the hall. Chris was flailing wildly, tearing at his hair. A spider. A goddamn spider dropped on me. Jay and I rushed over. I saw it on his shoulder, a pale, long-legged thing, twitching. But it wasn't a spider. It looked wrong. Too many joints in its legs, a strange, segmented body. It was like a blueprint for a spider that had been assembled incorrectly. Before I could react, Jay, ever the pragmatist, slapped it off Chris's shoulder. It hit the floor with a wet crunch and lay still. Chris was hyperventilating, his eyes wide with terror. That's it. I'm done. I'm out. This place is cursed. He didn't wait for a reply. He just turned and bolted back the way we came. We heard his footsteps receding, then a sudden, choked-off scream, and then, silence. Chris. Jay called out, his voice shaking. Silence. We stood frozen for a long moment. We have to go back, I said. Find him. And we get the hell out of here. We ran back to the lobby. But it wasn't the lobby. It was another hallway, identical to the one we'd just left. The massive entrance doors were gone. In their place was a solid wall of seamless concrete. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through my resolve. We were trapped. This isn't possible, Jay stammered, running his hands over the smooth, cold wall. It can't be. We turned back, frantically searching for the corridor we'd come from, but now there were 3 identical hallways branching off in front of us. The architecture was shifting. The building was a labyrinth, and it was rearranging itself around us. My phone, I gasped, fumbling in my pocket. I pulled it out. No signal. Of course. I looked at the time. 3:15 p.m. Then I looked at the date. October 17 th. 1983. I showed the screen to Jay. The color drained from his face. That's not right. We chose a hallway at random and started walking, shouting for Adam, for Chris. Our voices just seemed to be absorbed by the walls. The deeper we went, the more the decay set in. The sterile concrete gave way to peeling paint, rusted metal, and the pervasive smell of rot. We passed rooms filled with bizarre, archaic machinery, banks of computers with reel-to-reel tapes, strange metal headsets wired to humming consoles, and anatomical charts on the walls that showed not just nerves and muscles, but strange, shimmering energies flowing through the human body. This wasn't an asylum. It was a laboratory. We'd been walking for what felt like hours when we found the staircase. It was a spiral set of iron stairs, descending into pitch blackness. Our only option. We started down, our flashlights cutting feeble circles in the oppressive dark. Halfway down, the metal groaned. Jay, who was a few steps below me, turned back. "Frank, this doesn't feel sta." His words were cut off by a horrific shriek of tearing metal. The section of stairs he was on ripped away from the central column and plunged into the darkness. I heard him scream, a sound that was abruptly silenced by a sickening, final crunch from far below. I was alone. I don't know how long I sat there, clinging to the railing, my mind a howling vortex of terror. Survival instinct eventually kicked in. I couldn't go back up. I had to go down. I descended the rest of the stairs, my feet landing on a floor littered with rubble. I aimed my flashlight down and immediately wished I hadn't. Jay was there. Or what was left of him. I won't describe it. Some things, you don't need to see in your mind's eye. I was in a sub-basement. The air was thick and wet. And for the first time, I heard a sound. A low, rhythmic humming, like a massive power generator. I followed it, stumbling through the darkness, until I came to a massive, circular chamber. In the center of the chamber was the source of the sound. It was a machine. A colossal, spherical cage of brass and copper, easily 30 feet in diameter. Arcs of blue electricity danced across its surface, and inside the cage, something was suspended in mid-air. It wasn't human. It was a being of pure, shifting geometry. A constantly folding and unfolding collection of shapes and lights, beautiful and utterly terrifying. It seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, my brain struggling and failing to process what I was seeing. Wires and pipes as thick as my arm snaked from the cage into the walls of the chamber. This creature, this thing, was the building's power source. It was the heart of the labyrinth. As I stared, mesmerized and horrified, a single thought, not my own, echoed in my mind. A voice that was ancient and impossibly vast. Find the anchor. Sever the connection. Before I could even process the words, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow service tunnel. It was my only way out of the chamber. I scrambled inside, and the door slid shut behind me. The tunnel was a nightmare of claustrophobia. I crawled on my hands and knees through filth and darkness for what felt like an eternity. The humming faded, replaced by a new sound. Children laughing. The sound grew louder until the tunnel opened into a room. I pulled myself out, my body aching, and found myself standing in a children's nursery. Old-fashioned wooden cribs lined the walls. Toys were scattered on the floor. And there was a window. A real window. Hope, fierce and blinding, surged through me. I ran to it and looked out. I was on a second or third floor, looking down at a playground. Children in clothes from the 50s or 60s were playing below. Laughing. Living. Help me. I screamed, pounding on the glass with bloody fists. Please. I'm in here. They didn't look up. They couldn't hear me. I watched them, my desperation turning to confusion, then to horror. A boy on a swing went back and forth, his movements perfectly even, perfectly repetitive. A group of girls playing hopscotch landed on the same squares, in the same order, over and over again. They were loops. Recordings. Echoes trapped in time. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down, they sang in unison, their voices suddenly flat and devoid of emotion. They all collapsed to the ground, then rose in perfect sync and began the game again. They are the echoes of a severed timeline. The voice in my head was back. The anchor is not here. I grabbed a small wooden chair and hurled it at the window. It bounced off with a dull thud, not leaving a scratch. The glass was as solid as the concrete walls. Rage and despair washed over me. I screamed until my throat was raw. When I turned back from the window, the room had changed. The cribs were gone. Now it was a pristine, white infirmary. And standing in the middle of the room, his back to me, was Adam. Adam. I sobbed, stumbling towards him. Adam, we have to get out. He turned around slowly. But his eyes were empty, milky white orbs. His skin was gray and translucent. A terrible, knowing smile stretched his lips. Out. He whispered, his voice a dry rustle of leaves. There is no out, Frank. There is only in. The Institute doesn't let you leave. It integrates you. You become part of the system. He pointed a long, thin finger at my chest. You're a foreign body, Frank. An error in the code. But the system always corrects its errors. He lunged. I scrambled backward, falling through the doorway and back into a hallway. But this one was different. It was clean. The lights were on. Nurses in crisp, white uniforms walked past me, their faces blank, their movements silent and purposeful. I was invisible to them. More echoes. The anchor is a focal point. A living being from your own time. The first to enter. Adam. The anchor was Adam. To sever the connection, I had to, what? Find him. Kill him. I ran, propelled by a new kind of terror. I wasn't just trying to escape anymore. I was being hunted. I fled through shifting corridors, past impossible sights, a library where the books had blank pages, a cafeteria where skeletal figures sat before plates of dust, a garden under a sky of swirling black stars. Finally, I burst into a room that looked like a master control center. Banks of computers hummed. On a massive screen in the center of the room, I saw a live feed of the entrance of our car, parked by the side of the road. I saw myself, and Adam, and Chris, and Jay, about to walk down the path. It was a recording of our arrival. But sitting in a chair before the console, watching the screen, was a man. An old man in a tattered lab coat. He turned as I entered, and his eyes widened. They were clear. He was real. You, he rasped, his voice frail. You're not an echo. How did you get this far? Who are you? I demanded. I was Dr. Alistair Finch, he said. Head of this project. We were trying to observe the past. To create windows into time. But we didn't create a window. We created a cage. A self-aware, four-dimensional labyrinth that feeds on temporal energy. It anchors itself to a timeline, draws it in, and consumes it. My team, the children in the yard, they were the first to be integrated. The voice in my head, I said. What is it? A fragment of the creature in the basement, he sighed. The power source. It's a prisoner, too. It wants you to break the machine. To sever the anchor. Adam, I breathed. I have to find Adam. Finch pointed a trembling finger at the screen. You can't. Your friend has been repurposed. He is the new lock on the door. The nexus point that binds this place to your reality. The only way to break the connection is to erase the anchor point. He slid a small, heavy, old-fashioned revolver across the console. It has to be done at the point of entry. The moment he crosses the threshold, the system will try to stop you. It will throw its worst horrors at you. But if you can make it back to the entrance and erase him from the timeline before he fully enters, I'll be erasing him from existence, I said, the horror of it sinking in. You'll be saving your world, Finch corrected. This place is a cancer. If the anchor isn't severed, it will continue to pull, and everything you know, everyone you love will become just another echo in these halls. Suddenly, a piercing siren blared through the room. Red lights flashed. On the screen, the image of Adam flickered and distorted. He knows you're here, Finch yelled. The system knows. Go. Now. He pointed to a door behind him. That leads back to the main lobby. Go. I grabbed the gun and ran. The hallway beyond was a kaleidoscope of horrors. The walls seemed to melt, figures of pure shadow reached for me from the floor, the whispers of the dead echoed all around me. I saw Jay's mangled body crawl towards me, Chris's face contorted in a silent scream. I closed my mind and just ran, clutching the heavy revolver. I burst back into the colossal lobby. The great steel doors were there, but they were shimmering, phasing in and out of reality. Standing before them was the thing that used to be Adam. He was no longer solid, but a flickering, static-filled apparition of himself. You can't undo it, Frank, his voice echoed from all around me. We're part of something grand now. Eternal. I raised the gun, my hands shaking uncontrollably. This was my friend. Erase the error. Save the timeline. I looked past him, through the shimmering doorway. I could see the path, the trees, the setting sun. I could smell the clean air of my world. I'm sorry, Adam, I whispered. I fired. The sound was deafening. The bullet, impossibly, struck the shimmering image of Adam. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, he screamed a sound of digital feedback and tearing reality. He dissolved into a shower of golden light, and the entire building convulsed. The walls cracked. The ceiling crumbled. The floor buckled. I didn't wait. I launched myself through the shimmering doorway and tumbled onto the dirt path outside, the sound of a universe collapsing behind me. I lay there, gasping, as the sound faded. When I finally dared to look back, there was nothing there. No building. No path. Just a solid, unbroken line of trees next to a highway. It was gone. All of it. I stumbled back to my car. It was empty. I checked my phone. The screen lit up. 4G service. The date was correct. The time was 5:30 p.m. I frantically searched my contacts. No Adam. No Chris. No Jay. They didn't exist. My call history was empty. I drove home in a daze. My key fit the lock. I walked inside. A woman I'd never seen before was in the kitchen. She looked at me, a warm smile on her face. "Hey, honey," she said. "Tough day at the office." My wife. But not my wife. I have a new life now. A different one. The world is mostly the same, but the details are wrong. My favorite coffee shop is a laundromat. A brother I never had calls me on Sundays. My parents have memories of family vacations we never took. I'm the only one who remembers the world that was. I'm a ghost from a deleted timeline. I severed the anchor, and the system corrected the error by patching my world over the hole, using pieces from somewhere else. I checked myself into a psychiatric facility. It was the only way to make sense of it. They tell me I had a psychotic break due to stress. They give me pills to make the memories fade. But they don't fade. Every night, I close my eyes, and I'm back in the halls of the Blackwood Institute. I hear the whispers. I smell the ozone. And sometimes, in the dark, I see the face of my friend Adam, and I wonder if I saved the world, or if I just damned myself to be the last living remnant of a world that no longer exists. The real horror isn't what's in the dark. It's the realization that the light you're living in might not be your own.